Welcome to another episode of I Catch Killers. We have a great guest today. I'm not sure how to describe his life because it's been pretty extreme. He found himself at the crossroads a few times, but has met those challenges and I think came out on top as a better person for the experience. Yes, he hit rock bottom when he was charged with assault and very publicly extradited back to Queensland, but it's how people deal with mistakes that often defines them. You may have heard of the Bra Boys. That is the Maroubra-based surf gang that have earned a reputation for a lot of things in and out of the water. Our guest is a member. Perhaps you've heard of UFC. For people that don't have an appreciation of combat sports, that is the mixed martial arts where the combatants are locked in a cage with little or no rules to fight. Our guest fought at the highest level in the UFC. What about big wave riders? They're the men and women who put their lives on the line time and again, chasing the rush that comes from riding the biggest waves in the world, where one mistake could be their last. Our guest made a living chasing those waves around the world. He's also written a book about his life called Bra Boy, appeared prominently in two internationally successful feature films, Bra Boys, Blood is Thicker Than Water, and Fighting Fear. He's a regular compere on a sports show, UFC Fight Week on Fox Sport, and is a qualified tradesman. He's now using what he'd learnt to be a role model for others who may be heading in the wrong direction. I've spent a bit of time getting to know today's guest before he appeared on the podcast. I've found him quite inspirational. Richie Vas Vaculik. And I knew I was going to get that wrong. I've been practicing that all morning.
It's pretty close.
Pronounce it.
Vaculik.
Vaculik.
Yeah,
okay.
there's a T in there, but that's why everyone just brings it down to Vas.
We'll call you Richie Vas from now. I see why they make the abbreviation. Welcome to I Catch Killers.
Thanks for having us, mate.
How's things? How's life?
Life's good, you know. In these uncertain times and strange times that we're all in, I'm still lucky enough to, to get a bit of work done and get in the ocean and surf and train and spend time with my daughter. So all the the important things in life are still ticking away, which I'm grateful for. And we still live in this beautiful country, and I'm trying to appreciate all the good things that are still available. And so life's good. Yeah,
you got to be positive about it, haven't you? Because if you don't, you can just spiral down and go, oh me, oh my, and just try to enjoy the moments and look forward to the future. So.
Yeah, I agree. Especially, like I said, in this current climate, it's pretty easy to get on that slippery slope of doom and gloom. But like I said, look outside, the sun's shining. It's a beautiful day. We live in this beautiful city, so just the simple things you often forget to appreciate.
And mate, you're still alive because which I think is, and I say that because I think it's quite amazing. I've been reading your book and looking at the films and just on your book, and this is so I just haven't picked it up because you were coming on. There was a writers' festival that I had to do an article for, or they were doing an article on about myself and the books I was reading, and that was. When your book came out, I happened to be reading that. So for the Writers' Festival, I was pictured holding a picture of you on the book I was reading at the time. But you've had an amazing life,
mate. Yeah, it's been fun. I'm very grateful for some opportunities that I've been given, I've always wanted to try and step out of my comfort zone and try and chase things I really enjoy doing. And in doing so, I feel like I'm pretty grateful to have had a fun time doing so, and
Do you think
it hasn't always been successful, but I mean, they're the biggest learning experiences as well, the things that don't work out quite right. But I'm pretty
I like grateful. That. I like that attitude in life, because if you don't have a go and fail, you're not going to appreciate or learn.
Absolutely. And I've, from my past experience, I feel much better for attempting and failing than not attempting. The what ifs and the head noise you get from not giving something a crack where you think you could have and possibly been successful at or whatnot, I find that a lot more a heavier cross to bear than giving something a go and not pulling it off the way you were hoping. And of course, not pulling it off. There's lots of positives and lessons to be learnt from that as well for moving forward. So,
where are your risks taking? And your parents immigrated to Australia. They came over separately. I think your father was from Czechoslovakia and your mum from Manchester.
Correct. Yeah.
That's gutsy in itself, isn't it? Like coming over, because they came over single, didn't they? They weren't together.
Yeah. And I sort of, you only appreciate that as you get a bit older, Now, like I'm 38, and I can imagine being, when my mum, when she left Manchester, was only 18. She didn't know where she was heading, but she ended up finding herself in sunny California, which is a lovely change from a little miserable housing estate in Manchester. And my dad, when I think he was 24, he escaped the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia at the time to escape, communism and Russia, and he found his way, as a political refugee to Australia. So that was huge things to take on at such a young age, and I think those traits have been passed down to myself and my sister about. Sort of step out the box a little bit and feeling free to do as you please in terms of, whatever career move you want to do or where you want to live or travel. It's sort of grabbing life by the horns kind of approach is something they've always just subtly instilled in us,
Well, when you think and coming that age, literally moving across the other side of the world, not knowing what you're going to do, you've got to have an adventurous streak in you to do that. So that must have passed on to you a bit. But
absolutely, and that's, especially through the surf travels, is apart from the amazing waves and the fun times with friends, there's that adventure of you're not exactly sure of the destination that you're going to and never been there before and what's around that next headland, and that that sense of adventure is something that's really addictive and I've always enjoyed pursuing.
Well, the fact that your parents were adventurous and they brought you into this world, and then another thing that's had a big impact on you is where you grew up and growing up in Maroubra. And you've certainly, that crew there certainly made a name for themselves, good, bad, indifferent, but everyone knew you were there. But talk to me about growing up in Maroubra, because it has defined you.
Absolutely. It was an absolute ball growing up in Maroubra. There was never a boring day, and surrounded with so many friends from different ages, and obviously the camaraderie and the board riders and the bra boys, and growing up with not just like peers, but like when you talk about heroes, you think of people like Muhammad Ali or Joey Johns, all these people that but I grew up and my heroes were just the older guys at the beach who were just charging when the waves got big, or you knew they were a crazy street fighter, or there were some guys who were just an awesome, like a ride off, could always make the whole pub laugh. And so all these guys I was always just looking up to, and a whole a thick bunch of mates to run around and get up to mischief or surf or party and have a good time. So growing up in Maroubra was pretty unique, and it had its challenges. It was a bit of a double-edged sword at times for sure. But I feel very grateful to have...
Maroubra, and people that are not familiar with Maroubra, it's a inner city Sydney beach, and there's a lot of housing commission there, and it had a reputation going back. It had the sewage works there, which was it was something that you don't sort of go, oh, look, it's Maroubra Heights, look at the sewage pumping into the ocean, but also had Long Bay Jail there. So you had an eclectic mix of people in that community and gravitating around that culture of the beach culture.
Yeah, and I guess I like to kind of describe it, especially when I grew up, from when I was doing nippers down there when I was 5, 6. I joined the board riders when I was 10. It was kind of like, I guess, the ugly duckling of the city beaches, we didn't have the attention of Coogee or Bondi, and gentrification hadn't quite made its way down there yet. And like you said, it was an old pub that was run down. There was like a smash repairs on the beach. You had the jail on one headland, surrounded by housing commission, the sewage works. So it was a lot of moving parts that made it quite a unique little sort of community down there. And I grew up with like kids from all races and different demographics and parents who came from all walks of life and had different careers. So it was pretty unique in that respect, and that made a lot of fun and very exciting. And my mum got me in the board riders when I was 10, and I was living my board and my clothes down at the Maroubra Underground, the old original Maroubra Underground, McKean Street. From there on in, and
it's a good lifestyle, isn't it? Growing up on the beach and having the place to leave your board and wandering down there.
Absolutely, and I've always consider the ocean and surfing and just being in the water with spearfishing, diving as really therapeutic for me. And the whole culture around the beach, obviously, like I said, that can be a double-edged sword, and that's just not Maroubra, but that's any beach culture around the world is, they do have very similar aspects to them, like the partying and the drugs and all the stuff that can come with it. But I think that being in the ocean as much as you can, and it helps balance that out, and having good people to look up to and good mentors and good peers obviously help navigate those tricky times.
How were you in school?
How was I at school?
You're a cheeky little bastard. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just thinking it. Having read your book,
Yeah,
you were. Is it fair to say a class clown or?
Yeah, I still to this day, but definitely go out through school and high school and my early 20s. I want to be that class clown. Always make my mates laugh and be the centre of attention. And I was always a kid with plenty of energy, so probably a bit hard to handle at times at school.
Yeah.
I found myself in a class with a bunch of other rat bags called Australia's Most Wanted. We had a composite class, so two classes put together.
That was Stop, Think, Do? Was that?
And a part of that was Stop, Think, Do. So all the kids in Australia's Most Wanted were also encouraged to take part of this program called Stop, Think, Do, which is all about.
I'm laughing. Australia's Most Wanted. It was a TV show literally about Australia's Most Wanted.
Yeah.
We got been round about at the same time.
Yeah.
A highlight of your academic stages were your the ESL class. Is that English
as a second language? Yeah.
Even though yours wasn't the second language at home.
No, my mum's English. My uncle's an English teacher. Exactly.
You got put in the class because they couldn't pronounce your surname like I can't.
Yeah, that and I did mumble a lot.
Yeah.
And with my surname was obviously foreign, and I had bad ears growing up. I had to have grommets when I was like 6 or 7, which is like just the narrowing of the ear canals. And grommets are something that open up the ear canal so you can hear properly. So that was discovered because I wasn't hearing at school, and my speech and all that kind of was a little bit delayed, and so that coupled with a tricky surname, a kid that mumbles, throw me an ESL, well,
But you starred there because when they put a picture up of an apple, you could say apple.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was that was the highlight of my academic career.
Yeah.
A is for apple, B is for ball, C is for cat. I was on fire.
You're a star.
Yeah.
So this the Australia's Most Wanted crew.
Yeah.
So what age were you?
So that was in year 2. I was in a composite class.
Yeah.
So that's what a couple. That's 8, 7.
Yeah.
7 around that age, and we were just kids who had probably a little bit more energy than the rest and like to make each other laugh. And
it was separate you.
So because it was a composite class, we shared 2 classrooms that were joined together by one of those dividing walls that you can open up and close. And so the majority of the class would be in one area, and the Australian Most Wanted would be in the other, sort of the second classroom. And one teacher would look after the 30 kids, and there'll be another teacher in there looking after probably the 6 or 8 of the kids in the Australian Most Wanted, and they would just rotate, and we were just kept away from the main population, so we wouldn't
normal people.
Yeah, wouldn't stir them up and cause too many distractions. But I enjoyed Australia's Most Wanted. It was like you're in there with all your mates, so it was kind of a good class to be in.
Now, the surf culture that you talk about, and people that haven't grown up at the beach mightn't fully understand it, but the call of a grommet, a young kid that going out starting surfing, and you've got the older surfers keeping an eye on them, but also putting shit on them to a degree.
Yeah, grommet abuse is it?
Yeah.
You don't see too much of these days. But
it's not politically correct now, but it was part of the culture of the beach community.
Absolutely,
wasn't it? And so you got into that fairly early, and your role models, and I know through reading the book, like Kobe Abberton was one of the people that you looked up to, and he was a few years ahead of you.
Kobe, he's a few years, like 5 years older than me, and I from day one, him and his brothers, Jai and Sonny, were just, they're the hottest surfers down at the beach. They charge when the waves got big. Wayne Cleveland, Luke Dennett, Paul Moffat, all these guys, Tony Seddon, Jamie Reed, Howie. There's so many guys I look up to that when the waves got big, they were straight out there charging, or you'd hear stories about them getting a fight at the pub, and they could handle themselves, and they were funny, and they'd ride off, and they had beautiful women hanging off them. So all those things, I guess, as a young fella, you look up to and go, wow, these guys are gods, you know what I mean?
And they're the people you're aspiring to.
Yeah, but Kobe, because he's a little bit close to my age, he took me under the wing a little bit as I was a little bit older in terms of travelling and surfing big waves.
Yeah,
he was definitely my idol, and like I said, he represented everything I imagined, a man was to be, and successful and like fearless, and I was lucky enough to be, taken under his wing and did a lot of surf trips, and he really helped me in my surfing career, and especially when the waves got big, taught me how to deal with the fear and.
It's again, from what I'm picking up at the book and what I've seen of the films, that they really pushed you to test your limits. And it could have ended
tough
in tears.
love at times, for sure.
I was laughing at, and I can just imagine the scenario when the waves, no one was quite sure if they could be ridden, so they go, throw it over to you, go out there, and you're the test pilot.
Yeah, well, and I joke about in the book about suffering from small man syndrome, and I was always the smallest kid down the beach, and I guess I was a little chip on my shoulder too.
Yeah.
I always want to prove I can hang and do whatever the older and bigger kids can do, and so if the waves got big, I'd be the first to throw my hand up and say, yeah, I'll paddle out, or if someone said, oh, you get nude and run down the street, I'll be the first one to throw my hand. I'd say, yeah, I'll do it. Or would you, compete in mixed martial arts? I'd often throw my hat in the ring without thinking. But then once I had made that statement, I'd try to see it through. And I guess the boys caught wind of that, and I was pretty easy to have my arm twisted.
You just push a button and Richie's up for it. There's at the start of the movie Fighting Fear, and those people that aren't familiar with it, it's like a documentary, but about you and your best mate Mark Matthews and growing up in Maroubra, and the trials and tribulations and how you supported each other throughout those times. You're still good mates with Mark. And,
absolutely. Mark is now living up at Keira on the Gold Coast. At Coolangatta there, and still great. So I still stay in contact with him. He's got a young family up there now, but he's still doing really well, chasing those big waves and like loving life. And again, he was someone who I held up in high regard and looked up to as more of an older brother because we were closer in age, but definitely a role model.
And something that I find interesting that fits in with the type of people that we've had on Eye Catch Killers, and we've had people that there's crossroads in their life and they've gone one way or the other, and it's quite interesting. The people that surrounded you saved you, but they almost led you in a wrong direction as well. Like it's sort of a double-edged sword to a degree. With
it is, and a lot of, like, for example, I guess the mentalities that I took on board from growing up down at the beach, and like go hard or go home attitude. Yeah. That's great when you're in the ocean and the waves are big, and it's just you against the ocean. It's like, I'm just no hesitation. I'm just balls to the wall, and that would really serve you well. But take that same mentality into the pub or going to a party, and you often get in trouble if you don't have the maturity or the foresight to realise that you don't have to get in every argument. You can walk away with things, and just it's always just go hard. Yeah, obviously that's where it came back to bite me, and I found myself in trouble, and
takes you back from there. I think in the movie Fighting Fear was it Joel Edgerton was the narrator, and at the start of the movie there was a quote there: "We did a lot of stupid, reckless things in our lives, but that's just a part of growing up," and that was. I think that applies everywhere. Like you've probably done it in the extreme, but I think everyone, that is part of growing up. Like you've got a daughter now. I've got kids that are grown up. You had to let them go a little bit, make their own mistakes, come back with their cuts on them, and to learn. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. My daughter's 4.5, and she loves to test those boundaries. How far she can push it, and then learn from experience, and that applies right through your adult life, what you can get away with, and especially through your teens and early 20s as a young adult. Growing up in that pretty testosterone charged environment, you're always trying to push the envelope a little bit and see what your boundaries are, and then obviously the consequences of the thing. Like there's a time there I thought there was no consequences to whatever I did, so it was but then obviously you learn. And I was you mentioned like Fighting Fear. I was very grateful to be surrounded by guys like Mark Matthews and the director and of the film, Makari D'Souza. He's a great friend of mine, one of my best friends I went through high school. And while I was going for trouble,
he's shorter than you.
Yeah, and that's official now too. Yeah, all the 20 years of banter, we saw that one out with a DEXA scan, and I got him by 1 mil. So, they were just doing positive things in their own life, being successful, and they were obviously maturing while I was still going out and doing some dumb stuff. But just by surrounding myself, or just been lucky to have such good close friends of mine, leading by example in their own, their own lives, and not necessarily sit me down and lecture me what I should and shouldn't be doing. But that was like a little wake up call too, that if I don't change things, I'm not going to achieve what I would like to achieve, and I'll keep going down this path of, I guess, self-destruction. And
and it's an interesting thing with the whole Bra Boys situation, that there was some notoriety around. Like there was all, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it was, again, I'll say double-edged sword, because it's positive. And I think in our chats that we've had before you came on, you said, look, they would encourage me if I said I wanted to be the best UFC fighter in the world or the best big wave rider. They would support me and encourage me. But if I said I want to drink and I don't want to do anything else and I just want to,
Party and carry on.
Party and carry on, they'd support you as well. And it's an interesting, there's appears to be no judgment that comes from it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and maybe, I mean, the Bra Boys are a huge network of guys, and maybe the groups or the fractions within that would change from the support you'd get from obviously, what choice you chose to make. But there was always support down there from whatever decision. And like I said, I've got my friends who are lawyers now, or physios, or own building company. Like you put your hand up, where it be professional footy, playing there. Like you put your hand up, and I guess, had the balls to say, this is what I want to do in my life, and I'm going to focus on this. You got support, whatever that may have been, because that camaraderie runs pretty thick.
Because I don't, and for the criticism that might come the Bra Boys' way on things that have gone out, I don't think people understand there's a positive side of it too, encouraging people to have a go. Yeah,
you're right. And like I said, unfortunately, I guess encouragement for the wrong things probably got more headlines. And what that resulted in. So that was a big part, I guess, of why the Bra Boys documentary came about originally. And then I guess to a smaller degree, Fighting Fear is just to tell more our own story, because so much has been put out there in the media, which wasn't always correct, wasn't always wrong. Like we weren't angels by any stretch, but some of it was definitely, I guess, sensationalised and whatnot. So. Yeah, there is a lot of positive things that come out from that community.
And when you get that sort of reputation, like you would have been, people would be saying the Bra Boys did this that you hadn't, and there's probably things that you did that people didn't know about too. Like it comes with the territory, doesn't it? Because I think the Bra Boys movie was the highest grossing documentary in Australia.
It did, it broke. Well, whole heap of records, and the highest grossing documentary.
Yeah, had Russell Crowe narrating it when
Correct,
he's at the top of his game. So it was a big deal, and that would have changed the environment too, because you would have, I suggest, targets on your back.
Look, it did. You're right. It did change the environment down the beach, and more so for like a younger generation, a generation that were sort of younger than myself, and maybe a generation below them as well. Got a lot of, I guess, young kids, and not only and men coming and hanging around the beach, I guess, for the wrong reasons. They took the messages from the film maybe in a wrong way, and just wanted to come down to get a name and a reputation, and thought they'd get that by violence or partying and drugs and big note of themselves in that regard. And I know like a lot of the young generation, just found themselves in a bit of trouble as well. And
As you would have if you came through younger and the Bra Boys had that sort of international reputation.
Exactly, yeah. So that was like a little bit of an unfortunate sort of consequence of the success of the documentary. But a lot of those guys who I mentioned, especially the younger generation, I'm very close with a lot of them still, have come out the other end, where they had to spend a little stint in jail or deal with other issues that, that idea of wanting to make a name for themselves or whatnot, what it meant to be a Bra Boy, they might have got a little bit misconstrued. And they're all, majority of them doing really well. And it was a pretty tough period there. And I'm glad to see and say now that the beach is in a really healthy state in terms of the culture and the youth down there and what the focus is back on now, which is is surfing and whether it be footy, and even like I said, academic or supporting kids to get their trade and whatnot. That's that's in a really good spot at the moment.
Look, it's such, and I think perhaps why people are so interested in it, and it's just such a dynamic mix. It could go very good, it could go very bad, and people look at it. They should do a study on the whole thing and go, wow, how the hell did that play out? But I find it interesting, and like some of the experiences you had as a young fella has to shape you for your life now. And you did the silly stuff like your nude runs, which that broke me up. And, you actually met Kelly Slater for the first time naked. That's impressive.
Yeah, that was at Kobe. It was 21st actually. Not near here, so it's around Surrey Hills. And again, someone just dared me, dared to walk up to a nude and say good day, and yeah, that's all I needed to hear. And before I knew, I was throwing my jeans over the bar and walked up to him and say, "Hey Kelly, how are you, mate? My name's Richie." And he was a little taken back, and everyone had a good laugh. And then I got kicked out for being underage.
And that's the thing, isn't it? That's that fine line. Like, you can have a laugh. I've got a cousin that we've got, nude, how would you describe it, but love to get naked. But he got to the point where the pub, he would get naked and they didn't even look around because everyone had seen
no
it.
one flinched.
Yeah, but it was, and you attributed it to your childhood. You used to get a laugh when you were 3, running around naked, and you just hadn't grown out of it.
And again, trying to be the class clown, and making my friends laugh. But look, like I said, my mum, was a hippie in California through the 60s. My old man, it was only a couple of years ago, went for a swim at Yarra Bay, and I'm putting my board shorts on. I turn around, he's walking in the ocean starkers in the middle of the day. I'm like right next to Yarra Sailing Club. I'm like, "Dad, what are you doing?" He's like, "What are you talking? There's no one around. Like, what are you worried about?" Kind of like, so just all that carefree kind of attitude. And
I'm still traumatized for you when they took you over to America and took you to a nudist camp. Or
exactly, and that was just like for them. It was, and even me at the time, I was like, no big deal. We were in California meeting friends who lived at this nudist colony, and we walked through the gates and everyone's starkers, and we just all stripped off and had to swim in the pool. And so nudity's never been something that's like taboo or,
Okay, well, we'll do a listener warning here that we don't want to encourage people. But...
yeah. And I grew up in Little Bay, right near Kong Wong Beach, was a nudist beach. So I guess I was surrounded by it.
Okay, so it's not your fault. But what inspired you? There was a concert that you climbed a pole, which I don't know. I've seen photos. It was on the movie where you climbed up naked in front of a concert. Where was that? And what was that story?
That was at the Domain. Yeah, just near the Botanical Gardens. It was a Good Vibes Festival or Field Day, one of those big festivals. I think it might have been New Year's Day, Field Day. And everyone's partying, having a good time. There's this festival, and it was a great day. And I just saw this huge light pole in the middle of the dance floor, and just thought I could get up that. And so I did. And once I got up there, I thought, why not get starkers and have a dance on top of it? And again, trying to make your mates laugh. And once you saw the crowd enjoying it, you sort of carry on a bit more. And just one of those things. A decision you make when you're blind and. It's a good idea.
It was and you got away with it, which is amazing. And I think the funny tale at the end of that was you were working, because your trade is carpet layer, and you're working, and some bloke was talking about this crazy dude that was on top of the pole naked at this concert, and it was you.
That was funny. And then one of my mates I was working with said, "No way, that's him in that room over there." So I came in, we had a laugh about it, but it's funny how things come back around.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're not encouraging nudity, but this is Richie explaining his propensity to take his clothes off for a laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
you've grown
that page might have turned out. We'll see. I can't promise anything, but
yeah. Okay. There was growing up in that, but you also had a sense that there was something else going on in Maroubra as such, whether it's the Bra Boys, but just the community where when you're a kid, the blokes, and I know it from being in the cops, and you see people that they start talking out of the side of their mouth and low mumble, and you'd be walking up and clearly they're talking something that you're astute enough to know there was a dark side going on or something else was going on. Yeah. So they'd stop talking when you came up or send you out or...
Yeah, and I left my kid down the surf shop from a very young age, and that's where everyone hung. Everyone would come in and leave their boards there, or change, or hang out and get lunch. And I was the little lunch runner. Richie, go get us a meat pie, and I'd keep the change. I was always in and out meeting people and the other blokes, and you sort of sense this bloke came and the vibe of all the other blokes around kind of shifted, and you could see he carried a bit of respect. And then you'd hear stories about him, and that. He just got out of jail or whatnot. So there's always that air of, that reputation that surrounds certain people. And you did pick up from a pretty young age that, there's a little bit more of a darker side, I guess, that was going on. And then, of course, some of the boys went to jail, and I went to see them, and then you get an insight into that life, and then why they went to jail, and you start to learn about it, and that's always been a big part of Maroubra as well. Crime and jail, violence, drugs.
It almost sat together, didn't it? Like Maroubra, and you got Long Bay. You're looking at it on the headland, basically.
And that's why I guess I just happened to do trips to Long Bay at such a young age, because I was at the surf shop, and the boys were heading to go see one of the boys at Long Bay, which is a 2-minute car ride. And they're like, "Richie, jump in. We're going to see Ronnie." Yeah,
well, there's one. Was that Ronnie Reardon?
Yeah.
And he was a good fighter, wasn't he? A boxer.
Yeah. He was an amazing boxer. Fought for Australian title, that one fight of the year too. And again had his demons, but he was a fantastic boxer.
You talked in your book when you were 13. You were taken in there, and I think you referenced a bloke called Gromit that was strutting around the yard, and Tony Hines.
Correct.
And I thought it was very astute as a 13-year-old. You could sense what's going on here, because in an intimidating environment like a prison is, these blokes seemed to own the yard. They didn't give a stuff who was listening to what they were doing, or they were having goes at people, and no one cared. What was your impressions there as a young fella there? That must have, like 13 going into prison, you would have been wide-eyed and going, what the hell?
Yeah, I was like dinner plates, and it was you're walking through the old big arches of Long Bay.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Just the whole environment and dynamic as you walk in. You're seeing wives crying and kids crying, and they're hugging their father or their husband or whatnot. It's a pretty surreal kind of environment, for someone who's never seen that. I never heard about it, and even I basically at that time I'd only ever heard about Gromit and Heinze and stuff, for little snippets, because I spent so much time in jail. I never really got to meet them, and then you'd hear these stories about them, and you'd see them, and they were the loudest two in the yard carrying on, and it was an insight into, I guess, where I did want to be for sure. It wasn't an environment that I wanted to find myself in. I know some young fellas, I guess, see jail as a bit of a mark of honour, or
well, it's almost in the wrong environment. It almost is like that, the coming of age, isn't it? It's all, well, that's what you do.
I almost fell victim to that mentality at one point, when I did get in trouble. But just seeing Gromit and Heinze in there, it was wild. Amongst so many other scary men, but I like they're obviously career creams, and and those who didn't give a fuck, they were writing off yelling, tell them cunts to get fucked, tell them this cunt to go do this, and
they didn't care.
Nah, it was wild.
So, and that you could tell something from that. What kept you, because you were clearly looking over the edge where you could have fallen that way, and we'll talk later about your low point when you got charged, but you sort of had a sense to pull back a little bit. You didn't cross the line completely. You had people like that. You could have looked up to Gromit and Heinze or whatever, but you didn't. Is it your parents' influence, your family, friends? What was
I mean, predominantly my family.
Yeah.
My mum, my father, my grandmother. She looked after myself and all the other grandkids. So she was like the matriarch of the family, who we had a lot of respect for, and I knew it wouldn't be something that would please her if I was to carry on and get into trouble and find myself in that environment. And my friends, my closest group of friends, they weren't into that stuff, They were out going to uni, doing well in high school to get good marks. They were athletic, whether it be soccer, surfing, footy.
Yeah.
We're all pretty driven to succeed and achieve things in their life, which didn't involve going to jail or getting in trouble, being in and out of the courts. So I think that rubbed off for me as well.
That was the influence. And you said with your grandmother, you didn't even let her know that you had your bra boy tattoo.
Yeah, that's right. So
she must have scared you.
She's very old school, and tattoos were for criminals. Don't you ever get a tattoo? Don't you ever get a tattoo? And so when I got across my guts when I was 17, I kept it hidden, and then now it's funny. Now I've got a big tattoo for her on my shin. So cool. So do a few other grandkids. So but she was a woman that I never wanted to upset.
There was a staunchness and a loyalty to the people too there. I know how you got into the surf scene with your mum asking someone, and they've pointed you in the direction of the bloke that associated with the Bra Boys, the surf.
Yeah, so I mean, it's such a tight community at Maroubra, especially back then. It was like a little country town. My mum, she would take me down the beach, and she'd always sit on the sand waiting for me to come in. And, obviously some days I'd stretch out longer than expected. I'd always just put my finger in the air and say, "Mum, one more wave. And that might be 45 minutes or another hour in the water. Yeah. So she started to get a little bit fed up of taking me down there all the time and sitting on the sand. My uncle's a surfer. He lives in Avalon. And he would always take me surfing up at Avalon on my fiberglass board. Yeah. My mum wasn't really confident in me bringing the fiberglass board home and being on the beach, so I'd ride a bodyboard when I was at Maroubra. So it came to the point where she goes, "I've got to get in the board riders." She heard about the board riders through Nippers, and even my uncle, they got board riders at every beach pretty much up and down the coast. So she went down to used to be called Aurora Milk Bar, where Sean Bellatello, it was his little milk bar he had, and she asked, "Look, how do I get my son in the board riders?" And he said, "Go to the surf shop, Maroubra Underground. There's a guy in there called Hair Bear. He'll sort you out." So I went down Maroubra Underground. Hair Bear was there. Paul Chandler, who's now the Dean of Wollongong University.
Yeah.
But he used to look at the surf shop and said, yeah, no worries, bring him in, we'll sign him up. And then pretty much from there on in, I joined the board riders, left all my gear at the surf shop. My mum would drop me down there at 8 o'clock in the morning, give me some shrapnel for lunch, and will pick me up, when the sun went down. And that was it. I loved it. And the boys took me on their wing, looked after me. Mum got on with all the older guys who introduced her at the surf shop, and she felt very comfortable, that I was safe down there, and so that's how it all. And it was fantastic. Yeah, Mum was safe, knew that I was safe and happy to be down the beach. So I was always pestering her because we lived at Little Bay, so it was like a 10-minute drive to the beach every time. And I was constantly pestering, "Can we go down now, Mum?" So now that she got me out of her hair, it was great, and that's how it all the board ride started.
So
and my life
with the Bra Boys, when it's like I see the positives in it, and I think there has to be positives. But some of the things that they got a reputation for, and and I don't think the public, widely know about when you'd go to surf events and all that. But you got banned for 10 years or whatever, and then you went up for a board riders competition in Coolangatta.
Yeah.
So just to explain to the people that mightn't be familiar with the surfing scene, the local beaches have board riding clubs or whatever, and they have national titles or whatever.
Yeah.
You guys have been banned for 10 years, the Bra Boys, and then so you've come back and your only aim was to get banned again.
Pretty much.
So
that was a...
I sit here and I'm laughing, but, how have you stayed on the straight and narrow in that environment?
It was tricky, and it wasn't always on the straight and narrow. So, it was... Yeah, the Kira Teams titles was a big, board riders teams event up on the Gold Coast every year, and we were finally allowed back in, and Maroubra was kind of in the thick of looking back of that mayhem and madness, around that time, and definitely kind of running with a hated and proud, attitude, and we loved our little patch of land and patch of sand and where we came from in our community, and if other people didn't, well, they could get fucked, and we was do our own thing. That was kind of the mentality we took to the board riders competition, that we weren't really wanted here, so we come here, have a good time, and don't care if we don't get allowed back in. And it was a pretty wild weekend. There was lots of arrests and police involved and made headlines, and we weren't asked back the next year, that's for sure. But
you were banned again.
Times have changed now. The boys have a great little board riders team now called Maroubra United, which involves all the board riders clubs on the beach, and they're having a lot of success in all those kind of contests now. But at that time, which was 15 years ago, 20 years ago now, it was a very different dynamic down the beach.
And it's funny with a reputation that can become self-fulfilling. Like it's the Bra Boys, and I'll talk about the punch up you had with the cops, the Christmas party. I've got notes here. It says
Mark Matthews 21st.
I've called it the policeman's ball.
Probably well, it was, and I think we fell in the trap of trying to always uphold that reputation. You know what I mean?
And I think that reputation. So because I was in the cops at the time, and it's the cops and the Bra Boys are doing this, and it's sort of like you see an escalation in the schoolyard. It almost became like that. We'll do this, we'll do that, and then as fate would have it, and I think it was 2002, so at Mark Matthews 21st at Coogee RSL Club, or Coogee Ramley RSL Club. You're downstairs, the cops are upstairs, the Christmas party, you're celebrating Mark's 21st. Correct, and then do you want to take us from there?
So, unaware that the cops' Christmas party is upstairs. We were having a great time for Mark's 21st birthday. As I imagine, it was a huge turnout. Towards the end of the night, like 11:30, the club starts to shut down all the functions and usher everyone out. So everyone started making their way through either the lift or the stairwell, which is a pretty confined space. And I was there, had a skinful of drink, and my mates were in the lift. They were at the front of the lift, but it was a packed lift, and behind them, unknowing, were like, they weren't obviously in uniform, but they were off-duty police officers. And my mates were going, "Jump in, Rich, jump in." And it was packed. I couldn't fit. But, of course, me being a goose, I took a run up and just swan dived into the lift, thinking I'll squeeze myself in. The off-duty police officers at the back of the lift didn't take too kindly for that. And what ensued was just, a big fight broke out. Words were said, push and shoving. And then, like I said, it was late in the night, 11:30, 12 o'clock, everyone's full of it, and it just kicked off and just spilled all the way out the lift, down the stairwell, and obviously as it went out into the rest of the crowd from both the police Christmas party and the 21st, it just erupted and got bigger and bigger until it spilled out into the street.
So that's and I think that sort of sums up how it happened. But it was huge at the time. Like it was huge. Front page in the media.
Yeah, there was helicopters story, and all kind. It broke out. There was full scale riot pretty much.
Yeah.
And obviously, it was both parties willing to to lock horns.
I understand the culture of the police, and I understand what you blokes were about, and I can see it was just a situation that it was a cocktail at the people in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it started from there.
Probably put it down to maybe poor organising to book those two events on the same night. But look, and unfortunately, you can laugh about it, but a lot of my mates, had to go to court and spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to clear their name. And you could probably hold me to this, but I'm pretty certain that out of all the charges and all my friends had to go to court and spend that money, it all got thrown out. That was, it was a good result, but it was also very frustrating because a lot of the charges were just trumped up, and they were just like the wrong person, and it was unfortunately cost them so much money to make that obvious, but then it cost a lot of mates. And at that time, you're 21, you're 20, you're just starting to work. It's look,
it was an ugly situation, and I know there was resentment in the cops and people, because the police were injured, as I'm sure some of your guys were injured, and people going, well, stuff this, and I think it would make you a target, like the cop.
And the police presence at the beach from there on in was a lot heavier and a lot more visible, and of course they were pulling us over and go for the cars, and you can understand why, but for us at that age, it was just like, we always had that fuck the police mentality, and it was just going to keep perpetuating.
That's that escalation.
Exactly.
You can see it, and it's. I was speaking to a ex-cop the other day, and said you're coming on, and he was talking about that situation. Said, after that happened, they the Bra boys were targeted, quite obviously, and
and because it was made so public by the media.
That's right, so, and it all fed in. It was just that escalation. But he said, then with the Cronulla riots, you guys did some good on the Cronulla riots, and which is all
very close together too in terms of timing. So that was another wild event.
And for people that don't know the Cronulla riots, it was Australia Day. Well, most people would understand the Cronulla riots. It was so widely reported, but Australia Day, and there was some real race-related protests going on down at Cronulla Beach that spilled up to Maroubra.
Yeah, so it was obviously there's a lot of tension and a lot of media attention of what was going down in Cronulla about Middle Eastern fellas being disrespectful and giving the locals a hard time. The locals had enough of it. Were saying this, don't take back the beach. It was all. So like I said, you look back and you scratch your head. I can't believe something actually, unfolded. But that, eventually broke out into a full-on riot on Australia Day, and basically locked down all of Cronulla. And the riots were basically a whole bunch of Cronulla locals or Anglo-Saxon men, basically, giving anyone who looked Middle Eastern a hard time. And it was a terrible look. It was it was a pretty disgusting act, and but that obviously triggered reprisal attacks, and all of Western Sydney's, not all of, I would say all of it, a big part of Western Sydney's Middle Eastern young fellas took it as a huge insult and wanted to seek revenge, and because they couldn't get back into Cronulla, that area, they just went after every other beach, and looking for surfers or anything that's got to fit the description of the people who were causing the drama down in Cronulla, and that obviously found its way to Maroubra and spilled onto the streets of Marine Parade and McKean Street.
Well, there was some pretty heavy stuff going down.
There was, like carloads of guys came down, and happened on a night where we were having our jiu-jitsu Christmas party. Yep. So there's a lot of the boys down the beach, and the pub was packed as well. So it was a bit of chaos ensued that night at the beach. But then the fallout of that was.
And when we're talking chaos, like your definition of chaos and other people's minds of chaos, it was like full-on brawls, and
poles and baseball bats, and
it was basically the group from the west that couldn't get to Cronulla that spilled into Maroubra.
Correct.
And thought, well, we're going to...
we're getting someone back for this.
Yeah.
Obviously, because the vision of what was happening in Cronulla was
it was outrageous. And the sad thing, and I'll let you explain how you guys help quell it, but Maroubra wasn't a racist place because it's such an eclectic mix of people there. But
exactly.
The angle
me and all my mates from
there.
ESL were down there.
Well, if you were down in Cronulla, looking at you,
exactly, I could have got. I would have got belted.
You would have been belted. But the fact is that the Maroubra boys weren't going to back away, and so it escalated. But then it was almost, and I remember from the policing point of view, it was an ugly situation. I think just from society's point of view, it was an ugly situation.
Yeah.
But the next day, I'm seeing on the news, and there was, I think it was Sonny. And,
Sonny and Jai. And Kobe was on there
and
as well.
some Comancheros.
Yeah, exactly. And to rewind a little bit too, I think a reason too why they focus on Maroubra for reprisal attacks, because in the media there was a lot of talk about people saying from like, all the Bra boys are coming down, and we get support from all the other beaches. They all support this sort of protest about taking back the beach, which never happened. No one had from Maroubra made a statement that we're coming down, but it was something that the media picked up and ran with. So it put Maroubra in the headlights in terms of, well, you're affiliated with the people from Cronulla and you support what they were doing. So that I think that's also what it made a bit of a target. That happened out that night, and it was a bit of a wild night. But then the fallout of that was with Jai and Sonny and a few of the boys who had spent a lot of time in jail and had made friends with a lot of the Middle Eastern community from the areas which the reprisal attacks were coming from, the Comanchero fellas, and they all reached out and said, mate, this is going to kick off, and how we're going to try and sort this is it's kind of going to get out of hand because there was reports of more carloads coming down to Maroubra in the week after, and man, there was the beach was like a war zone in terms of bats hidden here. Everyone was on high alert. We had grommets making Molotov cocktails and hiding in on the shop awnings, thinking that these are going to kick off again. So everyone was pretty aware that something had to be done, and the boys reached out to the Comanchero fellas and came down and made a big public stance against this has got to stop, and no one was sort of from either community kind of condones what was happening at Cronulla, nor the reprisal attack. So. Made it pretty public kind of. And
I think that looking at it from my perspective, watching it, and it changed my view a little bit. Like I thought it was really good that the bikies and the Bra boys together, trying to diffuse a situation, basically delivering the message that the police were trying to deliver. So I think that carried some favour, and it did have an impact. Like it.
Well, I think so too. In regards, like
took the sting out of it.
It did, and. And it was through such unfortunate circumstances. It was nice to have that sort of come to fruition. To I guess groups of people who probably aren't looked upon too positively, definitely by the media or the police, but in the general public, to be able to add a positive element to the craziness of what the Cronulla riots were. Yeah,
there was another one that, and I know it, impacted on you, and it's played out in the Bra Boys movie. But Tony Hines, the murder of Tony Hines. Now, Tony, and I don't think it's talking disparage of someone that was dead, but he was a standover bloke. He was a hard ass.
Yep.
And he was murdered, I think it was 2005.
Yeah.
I remember it from a homicide point of view. I was on call the night or the day, and there was a report of bloodstains at the
Mistral Point.
At Mistral Point.
Headland,
and the person that was contacting me said, look, we're not sure what it is. I won't call you out now. And another team went out. But that's Jai.
Yeah, correct.
Everton got charged with his murder.
Yeah.
How did you find out about the murder?
I was actually in Bali at the time with Kobe.
Yeah.
So we were just chasing waves over there.
Yeah.
I was pretty close to both, Jai and Tony. Jai was, again, like a Kobe figure to me. He took me under his wing, and he used to give me surfboards and wetsuits when I was a kid, and wild character, but a great heart. And Tony, I got closer through Jai and all the older guys, and then Tony pulled me aside one day and said, you're going to put my Audi in your name. And I was like, okay.
His car, registered his name. Yeah.
And it wasn't like wasn't really a discussion. It was like, and he took me out to strip clubs and showed me a good night, a good time, and said, "Well, this is what you're going to do." And I was like, "Yeah, no worries, okay, yeah." And so I got pretty close to Tony through that as well.
There was a menace about Tony.
Yeah, and I knew of Tony before I actually met him, and then when I did meet him, it was, all that and more in terms of his presence and his character and the stories I had heard. So then I had heard, obviously, that him and Jai had fallen out, and definitely not sound of mind, Tony, in terms of what the things he creates in his head. And we were in Bali, and then, obviously Kobe was contacted that this is what happened, you know what I mean? Tony's dead, and then, it wasn't a day or two that Jai had handed himself in, and we weren't sure what we were going to step off the plane to in Sydney when we arrived. But, Kobe knew that I had Tony's car in my name, and so I knew I'd be sort of involved in some regard. Yeah. And then we got home to the circus and the media and everything that was, and we got pulled in and to the station, and then we started to learn exactly what had happened and how I don't know how we're going to move forward, but what was going to happen. But I knew this is going to be a pretty surreal time.
It was a very heavy situation. You got the people that you know, and one's been murdered, and then the trial, the way the trial played out, and it was almost like he was acquitted. He was acquitted of the murder charge, and part of the defence, as I understand it, was because of the type of person Tony was, and I think the version of events that was given that he'd pulled a gun and there was a struggle and the gun went off.
Correct, yeah.
But
very like
Did that divide you as a group? Like,
not necessarily. You know, Tony was always a bit of like a lone wolf. Like he was from the beach, but he spent so much time. And he was like I said, a lone wolf is a great way to describe him. He did his own stuff. He ran to the beat of his own drum, and Jai was very much in the thick of the Bra Boys in terms of, being one of the Aberdeen Brothers. He was one of the first guys to get the tattoo and be involved in all the whole name of the Bra Boys coming up. Because, I mean, the Maroubra community's always been there. It's been called many different names over generations. But, in the early 90s when it kicked off and the boys started getting the tattoo across him, like he was there at the outset, and just such a lovable character in terms of, like, he's a great heart. He's an amazing surfer, charges when he gets big. And so there wasn't like a division. It was just like, it is what it is now. Tony's no longer here. I'll just do what we can to make the best out of this situation. Everyone knowing who Tony was and what kind of a person he was. And, it wasn't definitely a one-sided event where, it was, there's many moving parts to it, which very little of us knew, what those parts were. Yeah. So, everyone was just pretty gathered around Jai and the family, and Mark, as Ma was still around, Jai's grandmother, to support them through this time. Yeah,
and again, that fed into the whole Bra Boys thing, didn't it? Like like if you had the script, if the Bra Boys wasn't a documentary, you could make a movie, and you could write in the scenes that they're getting all punch up at the policeman's Christmas party. Yeah. Then the Cronulla riots, and you step in and then a murder in the middle of filming this movie. Like it's just...
especially now, like removed from it, 10, 15 years removed, when you say it like that, you're like, fuck, wow, that was a fucking wild time. And it was just a melting pot of just madness. And like I said, removed now, and the place is so different now in both, landscape, culture, community, to be reminded of all of that, what happened in such a kind of a close time frame. It was absolutely wild. And it was the norm. When I was in amongst it and it was all happening, it was the norm. It was nothing where now I look back, think it was so wild and crazy and can't believe that shit went down. When it was all happening like one after another, you just think this is just day-to-day kind of shit.
It's interesting you say that, because I wonder, because you were so close involved in it all, and it's going around, but you thought that was just the norm. But then you look back now and go, Jesus.
And look, it has time, I guess you mature too, but like even growing up, like through my teens, and when I was like, Maroubra was always a pretty wild place back then, like a lot. And so I guess it was just a progression of that, and that was pretty much, I guess, the tipping point, or like the pinnacle of the madness around that time, and then it started to change and things started to settle, and obviously people grew up, and we started to realise there's consequences to actions, and things started to change in terms of simmering down.
Okay. Well, look, I think at this stage we might have a short break. We've talked about this as Richie growing up and all the things. We'll talk about your low point, a turning point in your life, and it's almost you look at things building up and you think, well, something had to give at this stage. But then, how you've used that low point and what you've channeled your energy into now, and which is quite amazing. Your big wave riding, which is just. It just blows me away what you lunatics do, but also your UFC fighting and messages for people that have been through that situation, because I think if any young bloke going off the rails or girl for that matter looks at the experiences you're having in life, you got something to say, and if you say something, it's going to carry some weight. So let's
like I said, I like to hope so. Like, I like to see kids make better decisions than I have in the past, and if they are willing to listen, I'll be there to try and chat.
Well, you've got enough things to grab their attention with your story. So we'll have a short break and we'll be back in a minute.